We are ready to start now. And apologies for the slight delay. We can blame COVID for that. Could you please check that your phone is on silent? Martin Francis Kelly died a week ago, surrounded by his family, and was cremated last Wednesday. Today, we bid him farewell in a public manner as we conduct his funeral, surrounded by you, the people who meant so much to him, and celebrate his remarkable life.
Yaddy guddy. My name is Lucy Davis. I stand here for a couple of reasons. And seeing my childhood friends and family in the front seat, I thought I'd be a really strong woman and stand up here, but I'm getting a little bit sad. I stand here for a couple of reasons. I grew up in Beenleigh. Me and my brother, we went to the local Catholic school. I went to school with these mob here. I was great friends with Kate. A lot of adventures Kate and I had that Martin probably didn't know about, and we'll leave that there. And I grew up in Eagleby in a housing commission house. We're the only Aboriginal family probably at St. Joey's. Kelly's didn't see that. We went on to Trinity College, and I probably broke all the 10 Commandments. And I had a beautiful girl at the age of 16 named Alira, who's probably watching. And all my Centre Ed family know Alira. Wasn't sure what I was doing. Did a lot of stuff with youth with Kate. And then Martin Kelly rang me. And he said to me, "You know all these mob. Come here to Centre Ed." I said, "What, as a student? God, my mum will kill me. She'll never allow that." Mum already had me enrolled in uni and every single course going, so I said, "Okay then." I was 17. I won't tell you. I volunteered. We called it volunteering for a bit. And then as soon as I turned 18, Martin put me on the pay, and it was my first job. He ignited the spirit in me for who I am today. Many of my family, my partner, my brothers and sisters, many of our families have walked through the halls of Centre Ed and still come back today and say, "Where's Marty and Lorraine?" Many times when we would leave, I would see Martin and Lorraine at funerals. In our community, sorry business happens way too often. But Marty was always there to pay his respects. So I stand here today as a part of the Kelly family, but as a proud Aboriginal woman. There are many suicides through Centre Ed, and some of them really, really rocked Marty. One, our cousin, Travi. And Martin said to me once, "What am I doing? What do I need to do?" And I said to him, "It's culture. Our culture was taken away. We've got to bring our culture back." So we did. And we danced all through Logan. Many little footprints we represent today. Many kids that have danced with us over the years, and many songmen. I wanted to bring people together that represent Stratty, for the Shay Walkers that came and danced with us, for the Uncle Countries. If you ever want to know a yarn about Uncle Country, ask any of the Centre Ed. He was our uncle, he was a character. Martin lent the troopy to him once, and my uncle said to him, "I'm just going around the corner." Now, blackfella language, around the corner means, well, you know, it could be a big corner. Martin rang me 2 days later and said, "Lou, where's the troopy?" And I went, what did you do? Why did you give him the car? But he was our songman of Brisbane. We all grew up with him. And no matter how colourful he was, how beautiful he was, and all the beautiful dysfunctions that have been put on my people, Marty let them all in. So we stand here and we represent the many young people, Travis Day, Morris Fisher, many of our men and young men that have passed in custody. Martin was there for all of them. We stand here, we represent those song lines of those young people and all those young people listening and watching live stream that have been bombarded with stories of Martin rolling smokes for them and doing all kinds of things and really crazy adventures and troopies and stuff like that. But he was your dad, your grandfather, your uncle, but he was our Marty too. Thank you.
I've been asked to give Acknowledgement of country. This part of the country is where my ancestors have roamed for 65,000 years. My name's Shannon Rusker. I'm from the Yagara and the Torval people. And just around the corner here at Zillman's Waterhole is where my great-great-great-great-grandfather used to live. And a welcome to country is something that's embedded in Australian culture now, and so it should be. Over 65,000 years we've been welcoming each other, and it's our honour to welcome you all here today. A song and dance we're going to do is called Garing in Anami, and Garing in Anami is Here I Have Lived, in Yotya Moperono, on the flat treeless plain, Ngayan Man Marangai. This here, it is my home, in Jakon Gongarono. This land here, I shall remain forever. I'd just like to make acknowledgement. The song belongs to the Embries and the Cobbos, and my father-in-law, Lanso Chin, is here today, and they're the owners of the Garing in Anami song. But if you ask a lot of Murrays around Garing in Anami, and they'll let you know what that means to them. It's like a national anthem. Yo Garing in Anami, Nanya Bayama, Nanya Garai, Korbo, Moro, Kabi, Kabi, Waka, Waka, Moro, Yo, Yo. Ay, stop. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ben. I'm Martin's youngest son. Oh, this is going to be hard. Today, myself and Martin's older sister Anne will be taking you through this service. Thank you all for coming today to celebrate Dad's life. I'm blown away just by how many people are here, in the next room, online, or around the world to come and celebrate Dad. It sort of says a lot about him, so thank you. When Dad passed away, he was surrounded by friends and family, and we were able to spend a few hours sitting with him in the room, singing and telling stories. There were tears, but there was also laughter, and there was lots of love. It is something I'll always remember, and something I'll always be grateful for, that Dad did not die alone, as so many have this year. Now, for those in that room, that was almost our funeral. That was our chance to sort of say goodbye to Dad. But we wanted to acknowledge, we acknowledge that it's important that we allow Dad's friends and family from all over to come together today, either in person or online, to publicly grieve for Dad and to celebrate his life. Today we want to tell Dad's story, and it's a pretty good story by any standard. We also wanted to create a service that Dad would want to be at. So it's not going to be a traditional service, I'll let you know that now. We have decided to tell his story from the different components of the rich tapestry that made up his life. But before we start, I want to tell you all that it's okay to cry and to be sad, but it's also okay to smile and to laugh as you join us in remembering our father, our grandfather, our brother, our partner, our uncle, our cousin, our colleague, and our friend. Thank you.
I now invite our cousin, Peter Tonti, and Lorraine's granddaughter, Lara, to lead us in another sacred ritual, an incense ritual. From an early age, spirituality and the search for meaning have been extremely important to Martin. The bedrock, in fact, of his beliefs and values, but always vast and broad in their dimensions. Martin's God is immense, of cosmic proportions and mystery, a God who cannot be contained within one particular creed or human concept. We chose incense today as a symbol to capture this fundamental aspect of Martin. Incense and smoke have been widely used in different cultures for millennia. In ancient Egypt, Babylon, Greece, First Nations people, to deepen attention, heighten our senses, and uplift the spirits within us. And so, as the rising smoke of this incense surrounds us today, I invite each of you to pause for a moment of stillness and reflection, and let your thoughts and feelings mingle with those of all of us who have gathered here today, as we give thanks for the privilege of having known and loved this large-hearted, free-spirited man. My brother John and sister-in-law Lynn will now bring the wisdom of the Buddhist tradition into our midst.
Good afternoon. In the earliest preserved Buddhist texts that have come down to us in the language of Pali, an ancient Indic language closely related to Sanskrit, there are 5 reflections that the Buddha urged upon every single one of us, without exception, to reflect upon daily. In summary, these are a clear-headed reminder of the human condition we all share and emphasize that it is how we live our lives. Right now, that is what matters. For each of these 5 reflections, I'll give my English translation, then Lynn and I will together chant the same in the original Pali, as we do each day as part of our own practice. When we visited Marty in hospital just a few short weeks ago, on the same morning that he had received his terminal diagnosis, we had a very frank discussion about his condition and prognosis, and his radical acceptance and equanimity was both clear and very moving. Thus, I shared with him these Buddhist reflections at that time. He loved them and asked for a written copy. So here they are again for you, brother, and for all of you here today. I am of the nature to grow old. I have not gone beyond aging. This is to be reflected upon every day. Charadamamhi, Charang Anatitoti, Abinhang Pachave Kitabam. I am of the nature to become sick. I have not gone beyond illness. This should be reflected upon every day. Byadi Damamhi, Byading Anatitoti, Abinhang Pachave Kitabam. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond death. This is to be reflected upon every day. Marana Damamhi, Maranang Anatitoti, Abinhang Pachave Kitabam. Everything that is dear and delightful to me will eventually change and become separate from me. This is to be reflected upon every day. Sabe me piehi, mana pehi, nana Kitabam. I am the owner of my actions, the inheritor of my actions, born of my actions, bound to my actions, and protected by my actions. Whatever actions I do, whether for good or for evil, of these I will inherit the consequences. This is to be reflected upon every day. Kamma Sakomi, Kamma Dayadu, Kamma Yoni, Kamma Bandhu, Kamma Patisarana, Yam Kammang Karisami, Kalyanang Va Papakang Va, Tassadayado Bhavisamiti, Abinhang Pachave Kitabam. Thank you.
Aspects of Martin's extraordinary life are going to be related in 5 different segments today, starting with his siblings. And so I invite my brother David to speak on our behalf.
Good afternoon. Before I start, I'd like to shout out to my sister Sheila and nephews Justin and Lazar, who aren't able to be here today. All our love to you. Also to Lorraine, Martin's partner, thank you for the love and care you've given him for so many years. He absolutely adored you, and the Kelly family is blessed to have you in our lives. It is an honour to be up here today, but let's be straight. Little brother was conned. While discussing plans at our first meeting, the question of who will speak came up. Mary, Joe and Paul on music, of course, not sure why I never get asked. Anne running the show up front, who else? Tony and John spoke at Mum's funeral and Sheila is in Adelaide. So at this meeting, all eyes turned to me, so here I am, the least emotional one. Right. One positive thing is that I'll be up here and for the first time I'll be able to speak without being interrupted by my sisters. The other thing to clear up is to all you colleagues and friends in the back benches. How great can you make this Māori to sound with all your wonderful comments you've been sent through this past week? I've got to be honest, a fair bit of sibling rivalry and envy has been going on, and no doubt I will be exposing some flaws. And it is good that you're here because I believe later on some of you are talking, which might just mean at last, that myself and the rest of the family might finally know what Māori actually did. All we ever got when we asked him was lots of waving of arms. Now, Māori passed away Friday, as we've heard, Friday week, surrounded by family, stories, music and poetry. It all happened so quick and a real shock. Māori hadn't been in the best health for a number of years, but always pulled through with his indomitable spirit. He always seemed to talk lightly of his conditions, but this time was different. There was a real edge, a real concern. He didn't look good at Ben's 40th. Linda noticed that straight away, and Lorraine wasn't her usual self. And a short time after, when we were offered prime tickets to the AFL Grand Final in Brisbane, he declined. This was not like Marty. He loved his footy. Marty went into hospital about 3 weeks ago for the final time. A weekend, he texted the family to let us know that he had leukemia. It was like a bomb had gone off. It was also the day of my son Patrick's Year 12 graduation. So I texted him back, and he responded. And then I said, "Bugger that, I'll ring." And he answered to my surprise. We had a brief chat, which ended in tears, but I'm so glad I called because it was really the last decent conversation we had. And of course, with all that going on, he wished Patrick all the best for his graduation. So typical that he was thinking of others. Marty was born on June 1st, 1951, the first boy out of 9. Sheila remembers that when Marty was about 3 years old, Mum caught him on the front veranda playing with a box of matches and trying to light a fire out of leaves and twigs. And when Mum yelled at him, he burst into tears and said, "But I have to, because I'm the devil making hell." I'm sure that's been niggling him all his life at the injustice of it all. He was also the larger-than-life brother. No surprise he was called Tank at Rostrevor College. And when I was born, we moved to a big, rambling house on Brigalow Avenue where we could all run around, perhaps a bit wild at times. It was a moving feast of cousins, friends, barbecues, parties, lots of music and lots of food. Wonderful, wonderful memories. And so wonderful to see so many cousins that have come up from Adelaide, Melbourne and Sydney. Marty was 16 when Dad died suddenly, aged 52, of a heart attack. It was during the night. And Marty and Sheila performed CPR while the rest of us sleep. Sheila had to actually call out to Marty, who was pacing around the pool studying for an exam. Marty was there to comfort Mum. Marty was calm and confident in this emergency. And can you believe Marty was there at school that morning to sit his final Year 12 history exam? It's just what we did back then. I was 10 at the time, and he slipped into a father figure role without being a father, if that makes sense. He was there as a mentor for all his younger siblings. Though Tony reminded me about the camping trip we went on with Marty to the Flinders Ranges as little tackers, where he bought out some green-looking chops to cook for dinner. Not sure that was good parenting. Paul recapped during the week that Martin was a young rebel, a maverick, a trailblazer. He fought the battles against tradition and authority, and it made it easier for us younger ones to follow. Poor old Mum. Dad had just died, and she had to deal with Marty growing his hair long, smoking pot, upending the school system and society, and imagining new radical ways to live. By the time we all came along, she'd either been persuaded or enlisted or worn down. Sometimes it was hard to tell which was which. Marty married Rosie in September 1972. He was dressed in a Robin Hood outfit, of course, and was held outside in the family home. Let's get it straight. Marty and Rosie were, I believe, Adelaide's first hippies. It was the age of Aquarius. He had a big influence on Mary, who remembers, "I like to blame Martin for my Year 12 expulsion. How on earth could I waste time in a convent school wearing stockings and a tie and be made to write essays on religion when I should be marching against the Vietnam War, living in a commune, growing my own food, weaving raw sheep wool into jumpers, riding horses, and saving the world one sprouted mung bean at a time?" John recalls, "Marty inspired me breaking out to the counterculture with its thrilling anti-establishment music and anti-war sentiments, long hair and hippie clothes, going around the late 60s and early 70s. Martin taught me how to smoke cigarettes and, of course, introduced me to pot. And for the latter, I blame him for the fact that I ended up in the unaccustomed position of nearly failing a couple of subjects in my first year of university. And if everybody knows John, that would have been a real shock to fail. A very fond memory, John keeps saying, a very fond memory with Marty was when together we did a sit-in hunger strike against the Vietnam War in a vacant storefront on the main street of Adelaide, which lasted a week. Oh dear, expulsions, nearly failing subjects. Are you educators in the backbenchers getting all this? I also wanted to be like Marty at 16 with my afro and flower-decorated overalls. I eventually turned more conservative, but we know Marty continued to cultivate the flower power within him. Marty and Rosie bought a farm at Truro not long after getting married, 2 hours north of Adelaide. There wasn't a lot there, but they brought some animals, built some sheds, and enjoyed living on the land. I'm not sure about living off the land. It was tough country. I used to love going up there as a teenager for the weekend or during the school holidays. Truro was where Marty offered me my first joint. I respectfully declined. Jesus, Mary and Joseph and Peter Fulliger, that's true. It was also where I was introduced to Van Morrison. It's Too Late to Stop Now, his live double album which Marty played on his reel-to-reel tape player. I was also introduced to Jethro Tull's Aqualung, Santana and Osibisa. Marty was my music guru, as he was for so many of us. And recently I just put that album on, It's Too Late to Stop Now, on in the car last Saturday while driving back down the coast, a day after Marty died. Just me, Van and Marty, as it blasted down the highway. It was like driving with an old friend. Marty and Rosie moved up to Queensland at the end of '78 with Alice and Dan and with our mum Josephine. They brought 2 blocks at Ormeau between them, and who else but Marty decided to build his own house on his block. Meanwhile, 2 sets of twins came along, Sean, Jessie, Ben and Kate, all under the age of 2. Thank God for Grandma Jo next door. I moved up 6 months after them and developed a wonderful bond with Rosie and all their children. Marty was always the family man, the big-hearted brother and dad. He was always around. As a family, we were blessed to complete 2 hiking trips. The 5 boys and Tony's daughter Lucy trekked the Annapurna circuit in Nepal 10 years ago. And then in 2015, 15 of us traversed down the east coast of Hinchinbrook for 5 days, Hinchinbrook Island. On these trips to Nepal and Hinchinbrook Island, Marty was the one at the rear, chugging along in his own slow pace, his own steady rhythm, in his chroma scarf wrapped around his head, thinking he was so cool. Marty was so cool, we all know that. And it was just so comforting to know he was there at the back, bringing up the rear. The classic tail-end Charlie, making sure none of us were lost, making sure we had all arrived at our destination safely. Marty, as we all know, is so good at making connections. And 10 years later, we still hear from our Nepalese guides. And early this week, Suman wrote, "I feel like I've lost my family member." We all know Marty had that gift that very few people have. He touched everyone he met. He was empathetic, gentle. He listened. He was a calm and grounding presence. All week I've been struggling with what to say about Marty's faith. You would think that working in the same EREA circles for many years, I would have an excellent handle on it. But to be honest, we never really discuss it. I think he tried a couple of times, but once he saw my eyes glaze over after watching his hands go crazy, he just gave up. We shared the same strong Catholic upbringings from Mum and Dad and Ross Trevor College, and I know that we both have used those beliefs and values in the work we do. Perhaps the problem was, despite attending many Edmund Rice formation programs, I never went to one with Marty as a facilitator. Everyone would just rave and rave about how those sessions were run by the wise and the thought-provoking Martin. Anne neatly summed it up this week. Faith was core to the way Martin saw the world, the universe and relationships underpinning the way he embraced life with such passion and energy. Marty, the gang of 8 is no more. The profound bond that we have all held with each other was forged not only from Mum and Dad's great gift of love, but from the sudden death of Dad 52 years ago, and further strengthened following Mum's death 20 years ago. Now the ramparts have been breached. Marty, you made the best nachos for grand final day. Marty, you taught me how to cook the perfect lamb roast in a charcoal Weber. Marty, you always cook something exotic for family gatherings that I could never replicate. Marty, you knew how to make a good, strong coffee. Marty, your soul was a joyous kitchen of flavour, spices, aromatic smells, and love, boundless love. We will deeply miss all that and more. Love your brother. May you rest in peace.
David, thank you. Now Martin's youngest son and twin of Kate will speak on behalf of his siblings.
I don't think I need this step, but it's all good. This part of Dad's story starts in a tree in a maximum security ward of a hospital in Adelaide. The nurse on duty, a young English girl called Rosie, was not allowed to be in the grounds with the patients on her own, so wisely climbed the tree to sit safely while she waited for the assistant male nurse who was running late. After a while, a tall, slightly scruffy, long-haired hippie male nurse called Martin Kelly wandered over and climbed the tree to join her, not at all surprised to see her there. They sat for a while, talking about the meaning of life and about a book called The Little Prince, which they were both reading and both loved, and so they made friends. Rosie was doing her nursing training and Martin was on a holiday job at the hospital while doing his degree at Flinders University. Next time they met was again on the children's ward. Rosie, on her own again, busy caring for the children, wondering where her other nurse had got to. Finally, putting her head out the door, she spots Martin standing in the corridor, gazing rapidly out the window, watching the sunrise, with a smile of wonder on his face. All very well for you, thought the nurse, but get in here and do some work. Amazingly, though, they stayed friends. And their friendship blossomed through that summer, walking on the beautiful South Australian beaches, driving along the coast roads in a yellow beach buggy with Rosie's baby daughter Alice tucked in the back. We'd go on meditation workshops, folk clubs, and going to music festivals, and camping in a teeny tent with Alice just coming along with the adventures. The only place the baby did not join them was on Martin's BMW motorbike as they roared through the Adelaide hills. One day they took a trip to the snow with his brothers and friends in the beach buggy, and Martin on the motorbike with Rosie shivering on the back. And during that trip, sitting by a beautiful river, Martin proposed. They phoned Joe Kelly and asked if they could marry in the garden at Brigalow Avenue in 2 weeks. Jo, in her organised way, rolled up her sleeves, phoned all her friends, put on an apron, and they all started cooking the wedding feast. And on a glorious spring day in September 1972, in a garden full of blossoms, they were married with Alice as bridesmaid, and they became a family. They all lived in the hills, and Martin completed his teaching degree, and then back down to Adelaide, where the following November, young Danny O. Kelly came along, and the family grew some more. They lived in the Barossa Valley on a farm, and then Martin was offered a teaching position at St. Joseph's School in Port Lincoln. This was the start of his teaching journey, where his gifts as a teacher and communicator were developed and grew, and also spread his wings and took the stage with his musical talents as he and Rosie started a folk club called the Stinky Creek. And Martin tried out his renditions of Bob Dylan and practiced his guitar. After 2 wonderful years, the family moved back to Adelaide, spending time with Rosie's dad and brother Rick, who ran their vegetarian restaurant, Rosanna's. Martin continued his study, and then in January 1979, Sean and Jessie were born, and the family grew even more. Jo and her family had moved to Queensland by this time, and Martin packed up all his home, and off they went to join Jo next door. They set up a caravan and began to build a house, which took a while. Even after 10 years, I'm still not sure it was fully finished. In October 1980, Kate and myself were born, and Mum and Dad decided 6 kids is probably enough. Now, as I start talking about our childhood, I must make mention of the 7th child, the ordinary Kelly, that is Daniel Erbacker. Daniel grew up next door with Anne, Frank, Catherine and Louise, and Daniel has always been one of the kids from the beginning, and has remained a close part of our family ever since, and someone who Dad loved greatly, even when he misbehaved by ripping off the heads of Kate's Barbie dolls. She made me say that. During this time, Dad worked as a teacher at St Thomas More and later Aquinas College and even a stint at Trinity before moving on to Centre Ed, though that part of the story will be covered in much more detail later in the service. There was even a period when Dad put his hand up running a restaurant in Springwood called Oblio's. I think it's fair to say that Dad and Mum were well ahead of the times with this venture, as it was all about whole foods and healthy living. Probably not the most popular choice for Springwood in the 1980s. My memories of that time were more around the prawn crackers from the Chinese restaurant next door, but I'm sure if Dad was cooking, then the food at Oblio's would have been amazing. So what was it like growing up with Dad as a father? I think an adventure is the best way of describing it. We would go on epic camping adventures around southeast Queensland and New South Wales, to Moreton, Stradbroke and Fraser Island. We would go on long-distance car trips to Adelaide, Melbourne and North Queensland. I do seem to remember that more than one of these trips involved a car that probably should not have been used for this type of journey. Who else would drive a Volvo across a flooded stream? I think Ted and Penny are here who saved us that day, so thank you. One of them at least required the heater. One of the cars required the heater to be blowing at full blast at all times. Not ideal as we crossed the Hay Plain in the middle of summer. Many of our cousins and grandkids and friends had their first experience camping or sailing with Dad as well, and something that he was really pleased about. Music was also a constant at our place. The record player was always on. John Lee Hooker to Joan Armatradon, I hope I said that right, Leonard Cohen, Mike Oldfield, even Madonna. Weekend afternoons, Dad would potter about fixing the long wheelbase Land Rover, and the kids would play on the shed slab with J.J. Cale and Bruce Springsteen and the ubiquitous Van Morrison blared out of the car tape recorder. We thought Van Morrison was a bit hilarious. Dad felt the soulful, spiritual, joyous nature of those Van tunes deeply, but mostly he just liked to have a good time and sing along. Rosie played acoustic guitar, songs from the old days at Port Lincoln Stinky Creek Folk Club, which I think we need to start again. And also Beatles and Hollies and McGargle sister tunes. At Christmas, the rock and roll relatives would come up and sing and distribute much of the next year's listening to us on carefully dubbed C90 tapes. We all left home with a great love of music, and Dan took this and made it into his life. Now for the food. Both Mum and Dad love cooking, and Dad especially loved experimenting and trying new foods. Growing up in the 80s, most of our friends would be eating the standard meat and 2 veggies. Not us. Every night was a food adventure, be it a Polish hunting stew, a West African curry, or his famous pierogies. It is from these meals that a few of his children developed a love of cooking and eating. Some of my fondest memories with Dad is when we would spend all day cooking an epic feast for some party. Just over a month ago, Dad and I were able to spend most of the day cooking for my 40th birthday party, which was also for Kate, though she was in the UK, but we cooked for her. This is something that we did many a time with Dan, his son-in-law Will, and many others. We would spend hours, sometimes all day, cooking a variety of dishes, listening to good music, drinking coffee, wine, or gin and tonics, or sometimes all of the above, as we were cooking long enough. Most of these meals involved the trusty Weber at some stage or a gas camping stove. This would all result in a huge feast with friends and family, and often one of Dad's famous speeches. Now, I think it's only fair that I apologise to Lorraine, as while the food was great, the making of it generally involved the use of every single kitchen utensil and other items that not normally would be used for cooking. We would also use every available space, and so it would require a mammoth effort by Lorraine and the crew to clean it all up. This trait of using every item is something I have inherited from Dad, which my wife Louise is just thrilled about. During Dad's 60th celebration, I used the term free-range parenting. I use it to refer to Dad appearing to be very relaxed and allow us kids to run a bit wild at times. While I joked about it, I also meant it with the utmost affection and respect. Dad allowed us to be our own person. He provided us with the tools and support we needed, encouraged our interests, and it was always there if we needed him. While I was trying to think of how I wanted to talk about Dad as a father, Paul sent through a poem called Your Children by Cahill Gibran. In a moment, Sophia, Martin's niece, will read this poem to you. When I forwarded this poem to Sophia, she sent back the most beautiful response, and I think it perfectly summed up Dad's approach to fatherhood. I wanted to finish this part of the story with her words. Gibran's words capture the kind and selfless way Martin approached his role as a dad, a teacher, an uncle, a grandfather, and a big brother. With a love so fulsome, but without a skerrick of ego, allowing those around him to flourish in their natural way. He let us children fall and then get back up again. He let us venture and wander back at nightfall. He let us laugh, sing, cry, squabble, and grow. Conversations with Martin always ended with a renewed sense of self-esteem and worth for the young person, that they'd been heard, that they'd been seen, that there was meaning in those exchanges. Martin never asked kids to be anything other than our true selves, but we found ourselves always hoping to be just a little bit like Martin. Thank you. I'm just going to invite Sophia up now.
On Children by Khalil Gibran. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backward nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children as living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for happiness. For even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves the bow that is stable. Thank you.
Blow and blow. They call me the breeze. I keep blowing and blowing. I ain't got me nobody. I ain't had me no love. Ain't no change in the weather. Ain't no change
Why torture yourself when you know you're in love? Throw your pride in the ocean and be happy beneath the stars above. Confess your feelings to the one you love, and let's live before it's too late. Let's live. Why deprive yourself of the wonders of life? Time is getting shorter, there's no reason for those lonely nights. If you don't hug, you miss the boat. And let's live before it's too late. Let's live. Why should you live in a sad state of mind? Problems, problems, problems all the time. Do your best to get them off your chest. Everything will be just fine. Whoa, 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 whoa. Love is nice. Love is sometimes cruel. When you've been in love, you have been to the greatest school. So try and make it honey, and I'll do the same. Let's live before it's too late. Let's live before it's too late. Let's live. You know, I know it's too late. So come on, come on, come on, come on.
When the night is come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see, I won't be afraid. I won't be afraid, just as long as you stand by me. Stand by me. Stand by me. Stand by me. Won't you stand by me? Whoa, stand by me. Stand by me. And when the sky that we look upon should crumble and fall, and the mountains should tumble to the sea, I won't be afraid. I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand
we're going to sing a song called Nakanya. It's a song of farewell. And Nakan is a Nurrunjeri word from our home state of South Australia, which means see. So Nakanya, see ya. Outside the dogs are barking, the morning sun is breaking through the trees. My heart is feeling heavy as I listen to the moaning of the breeze. Nakanya, baby, I really don't want to leave. There's a ticket in my pocket, I'd toss it if I only had my way. Suitcase in the hallway, I wish I could unpack it now and stay. Nakanya, baby, I'm gonna be back someday. Nakanya, don't it go to show what a man don't know? Nakanya, baby, I really don't want to go. My land was once a river, I hate to see it slowly bleeding dry. My love is like an eagle, high across the desert she will fly. Nakanya, baby, I'll see you by and by. Nakanya, what a man don't know. Nakanya, Nakanya, baby, I really don't want to go. Don't it go to show what a man don't know? Nakanya, Nakanya, baby, I really don't want to go. Nakanya, Nakanya, baby, I really don't want to go. Nakanya, baby, I really don't want to go. Nakanya, baby, I really don't want to go.
Really nice today to see so many of Dad's friends, not just from recent years, but also from his childhood, from his time in South Australia. It's great and it means a lot to all of us that you guys would take the time and can come here today or online. We just want to invite for this next story about Martin's friends, we want to invite Ted and Penny Wern up to read a story. Thank you.
A letter to a friend. This letter was written after hearing the news of Martin's death. Our dear friend Martin, how dare you go like that, without a word and no preparation? Wait until we see you again. Martin, we feel shattered by your death. Know that we love you as a dear and treasured friend. We want to say sorry for not keeping up our contact with you over the past few years. Somehow our lives got in the way. Both Ted and I want to tell you how enriched we are by your beautiful friendship, your mind, your creativity, and your courage. In fact, speaking of courage, our nickname for you was Martin Kelly, Take It to the Edge, because you like to hang out there on the edge a fair bit of the time and encouraged us all to do so too. Your search for meaning, your deep spirituality, your passion for the environment, and compassion for those less fortunate than us will never be forgotten. But most of all, your fatherhood and friendship stands out for us. As we dust off old memories of Matthew Fox and creation-centered spirituality, Van Morrison camping on Moreton Island, the Land Rover needing boiling water poured over the radiator to start it, the new Land Rover's engine catching fire on us driving down the beach on Stradbroke Island, the endless meals we shared together and evenings of discussion and listening to music and impromptu concerts at your house, sailing, the boats and the bedrooms, and the Oblio restaurant venture. You were always daring and lived your life with passion. Your inner strength, assertiveness, and confidence carried you to many places and a wide circle of people. We mourn your passing from this life with all our heart and soul. This world is bereft without you, so much because a shining light has gone from our midst. We want you to know we are here for your dearest family if they need us. Our prayer today is for you and your loving family, and our deepest gratitude for the beautiful gift you are and shared with all who touched your life. May our beloved hold you in her arms until we meet again. And P.S. Say hi to Joe and your dad for us, and please tell them that their son, Martin Kelly, is one of the most beautiful friends we ever had the privilege to accompany on this earth. And he was and is a gift to this world, to many, but especially his family.
As we all know, Martin was passionate about his work and created many new and varied pathways for others to follow. His colleagues, Kelly Stemp, Brian Dunlop, and Tracy Pratt, are now going to give us a glimpse of what he meant to the many students and staff he worked with over the years.
We begin by acknowledging the Yagara and Turrbal peoples, traditional custodians of the land on which we gather. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today and those who are with us in spirit online. We have such an incredible, humbling privilege of talking to you today about Martin's work life. For us, his professional life is deeply personal. In thinking about what we would share, we were sharply aware that we could barely approach describing the wholeness of his career. So our loftiest aim is to give you a sense, an inkling of the deep and lasting impact that Martin will continue to have on the lives of so many. Martin was a journeyman. In European tradition, the journeyman was a craftsman who had completed an apprenticeship and then took his skills on the road, continuing to develop mastery while earning a living each day. Martin never stopped honing his craft. He was a wayfinder, a reinterpreter, a truth seeker, and a lifter of spirits. Over 40 years, in many places and roles, and with thousands of people, he explored what it meant to educate, to bring forth and to draw from himself and from others.
Martin was never alone. He invited us into the journey with him, and together we wrangled with ideas of schools based in common ground where all belong and have voice and responsibility in equal measure. He asked us to define the shapes of our containers, to clarify the nature of our school communities, whether we were serving Italian or Chinese at our educational restaurant. He used these analogies to describe the difference so that young people and adults could make a clear, informed choice about whether they wanted to engage and learn with us. Martin challenged us to find a stance in our personal approach to working with young people and to be intentional in our purpose, whether that was double-digit multiplication, hardening up on a mainsail, resolving a conflict, or celebrating success. Martin demonstrated the 5-finger working agreement so that all in the group could be part of defining how they would use the 4 principles of respect, participation, honesty, and safe and legal. Martin showed us what it meant to sit in the muck and mess with young people, with each other. At least some of the time, if we were lucky, we would all emerge a little transformed. Marty taught us how to look for the light, to recognise, acknowledge, and spark the rays of light in young people so that they might embark on the journey with us. Martin walked, talked, swam, paddled, planned, climbed, danced, and sailed the journey with joy. He was a clown, playful and unafraid to look silly, holding the light in balance with the dark, often in places where the dark can be overwhelming. In several flexi schools, by virtue of his characterful eyebrows and hairstyle, he was nicknamed Gargamel, the nemesis of Smurfs everywhere. Martin enjoyed this moniker, as he knew that it had indicated his acceptance by the young people with whom he sought connection. Together with Lorraine, Martin grew us up in the practice. He has been a mentor, an advisor, a guide, counsellor and confidant. Together, they have championed us, pushed us forward, challenged us. This has meant fulfilling tasks that we didn't want to do or didn't think we were capable of doing, and frequently only succeeded in due to Martin and Lorraine's belief and support. We don't actually expect that anything much will change in this regard.
Both physically and spiritually, Martin invited us into thin places, places where we connect with another in ways that reveal our brokenness and our beauty, such that the human and the holy touch, sometimes only for the briefest of moments. Martin created spaces on the journey where together we could take the lines that divided us and make them bridges, points of connection with each other, places of communion with human spirits that yearn to be part of something greater than themselves. A poem by Tyler Kent White speaks to Martin's journey. Do not tell me about cities, I have no use for them. Tell me about the oceans and how they've changed in you, about lemongrass and the summer storms coming in off your shoreline, about the waters that have carved canyons in your bones. Do not tell me about the buildings, I do not care for their heights. Tell me about your first breath of foreign air, about the history that fills your lungs. Tell me about the memories you made in languages you can't even begin to understand. Do not tell me about the mountains, instead tell me how they were formed. Tell me about the head-on collisions of tectonic plates, about wrinkles along the fault line, about the pockets of earth that folded up into the sea. Tell me about the rains that washed and wore you down, about the travels you took to find yourself, and how you left a part of you in every place, yet somehow always came back more complete.
Martin used a metaphor about our work in flexi schools as the ripples that are created when a pebble is thrown into a pond. Each of us makes choices that affect our own lives and those of people around us. Those choices create ripples that can have far-reaching effects, the importance of which we may never know. He reminded us of the need to tell the positive stories of those ripples loudly, to enable the best in ourselves and in our communities to rise. In so doing, the weaknesses often work themselves out. While Martin has been banging on about this for years, we now call it strength-based practice. Throughout his journey, we have been the ripples to Martin's pebble. Now it is our turn to be the pebbles for others and to continue to tell the stories of the good ripples. In an apt whim of fate, Martin completed his journeying on the last day of the school year. As Helen Scott, a colleague from Townsville, reflected to Lorraine, as a man who never retired, he will forever be on Christmas holidays. Thank you.
One of the most important stories in Dad's life has been saved to the end. And this is the story of Lorraine, who brought so much joy and happiness to Dad and someone who he loved dearly. This part of Dad's story will be told by Lorraine's son, Matthew.
Thanks, Ben. So I'll say a few words on behalf of my mum, Lorraine, and for myself and everyone on the Brown and Robson side, who all love Martin so much. First of all, I just wanted to mention and thank my Uncle Chris, who made this beautiful wooden box to carry the ashes and tokens of Martin. Thank you, Chris. And my Uncle Philip wanted me to say that at 9 a.m. on a Sunday, 2 days after Martin passed away, a Catholic Mass was held in Papua New Guinea that celebrated Martin's life and memory at a community chapel of the Divine Word Missionaries. These were frontline educators and caregivers, and they were his kind of people. My mum's sister Heather wanted me to say that the time when her husband Barry was critically ill and they were spending every weekend at a rented house in Bowral, one day Martin and Lorraine, my mum, surprised them by arriving from Queensland on Martin's motorbike. So, apart from spending a lovely time together, she said that afterwards something Martin did touched her deeply. He sent her a remarkable letter of empathy and understanding with words that described, that she said, captured exactly how she was feeling. And she thought this was a completely remarkable event coming from someone she had only just met. So my brother Sean and I have known Martin since we were boys, and we were talking just the other day about how we have never known anybody with such a consistent and impeccable record of being warm, friendly, and kind. And it might sound strange, but we only just realized at that moment that we couldn't either of us recall a single time in all of those years just either one mean or even cold word from Martin. In fact, the only exceptions we could think of this was in relation to Tony Abbott or John Howard, when we might have heard something not entirely friendly. And we realized that this simple observation marks him out as a truly remarkable human being, an exceptional human being. And we both agreed that they certainly won't be able to say the same of us at our funerals. We've been known to make a few harsh and cold words. So we lived with Martin and Mum for years at our home, their home at Luscombe. And when my wife Michiko came to Australia, she was an early riser, like Martin. And at the time, her English was not exceptionally good. And she remembers how lovely it was to rendezvous with Martin in the kitchen at Lascombe every morning and chat together as they were pottering about, getting things ready, talking about what was going to happen during the day. And she remembers that as just one of the most welcoming feelings when she was in this strange new country. And then, of course, they would deliver coffee to me and Mum in bed, the two of us who would never be sensible or even tolerable at that time of the morning at all. So when our kids were little, and they're here today, they can remember the fun they had making pasta with Martin in the kitchen, maybe lying up on the table while he used the new pasta maker or some other piece of strange equipment that he'd bought, him dancing with the kids and playing shop with the girls. And we thank him for the times that he and Mum organised for us as a family, camping trips, canoeing trips on beautiful places like the reaches of the Noosa River. But most of all, I guess, all of us remember there's so many friendly dinners and rambling chats over glasses of wine at the table or by the fire. And I in particular remember, particularly with just happiness, sharing a whiskey together and having some strange conversation about religion or philosophy or something else. I'm not quite sure. I don't think we ever really figured out what we were talking about. Martin loved to have conversations like that, and I loved them too. And in fact, when anyone had a conversation with Martin, you could be assured that it would be full of warmth and humour and understanding. So I'm, like many of my family, not particularly religious, and so I cannot comment on whether or not Martin was an archetypal Catholic. But I can say that he was the archetypal good man, a genuine role model for all men. But most importantly for me and our family, he made our mother's life inestimably warmer and happier in every possible way. And we'll always be thankful to Martin for that. Thank you.
As you can see on the order of service and in many of the slides, and that picture there, Dad enjoyed being out on the water, both for his own fun and with his students. Now, I will point out that while Dad loved being out on the water, it was not always smooth sailing. Dad and I would often spend a few relaxing hours either out on his boat that he built that he loved. We'd be out on either Moreton Bay or the Broadwater. They were fun until we decided to dock. We would often make these grand plans about how we were going to approach the dock. We would talk, hands would be going everywhere. Both of us would be doing this. But these plans always seemed to unravel. And we would end up either bumping the dock, getting tangled in the ropes, or even beach the boat unexpectedly. But through it all, Dad had this big smile. And we would laugh and tell ourselves, we'd do better next time. Sailing was also a passion that Dad shared with his son-in-law, Will. And he loved sailing with Will both here and in the UK. And he loved sailing with his grandchildren as well. Will's father, Andrew, was also an avid sailor and someone who Dad had developed a closer relationship with. Sadly, a few years ago, Andrew passed away, and Dad was able to make it over for the service. The poem that you will hear shortly was read at Andrew's memorial service and was sent to us on the day of Dad's passing by Will's sister, Victoria. Kate read this poem to Dad in his final hours. I do like to imagine that when Dad passed away, Andrew was up there waiting for him with the boat rigged and well stocked, and they're now off on an adventure together, telling stories and having fun. We have asked Dad's friend, Jono, to read the following poem. Dad worked with Jono on setting up Blue Peter, and it was a project he was very passionate about. We felt it appropriate for Jono to read The Unknown Shore.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. Sometime at eve, when the tide is low, I shall slip my moorings and sail away, with no response to friendly hail, in the silent hush of the twilight pale. When the night stoops down to embrace the day, and the voices call in the water's flow. Sometime at eve, when the tide is low, I shall slip my moorings and sail away, through purple shadows that darkly trail over the ebbing tide of the unknown sea, and a ripple of waters to tell the tale of a lonely voyager sailing away to mystic isles where at anchor lay the craft of those who had sailed before, over the unknown sea to the unknown shore. A few who have watched me sail away will miss my craft from the busy bay. Some friendly barks were anchored near, some loving souls that my heart held dear, in silent sorrow will drop a tear. But I shall have peacefully furled my sail, in moorings sheltered from the storm and gale, and greeted friends who had sailed before, over the unknown sea to the unknown shore.
Oh, all the money that e'er I spent it in good company. And all the harm that e'er I did, alas, it was to none but me. And all I've done for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all. If I had money enough to spend, and leisure time to sit a while, there is a fair maid in this town, who sorely doth my heart beguile. Her rosy cheeks and ruby lips, I own she has my heart in thrall. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all. Oh, all the comrades that e'er I had, they're sorry for my going away. And all the sweethearts that e'er I kissed would wish me one more day to stay. But since it falls unto my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and I'll softly call. Good night and joy be with you all.
We will now close this memorial celebration in the way we began, by inviting Lucy Davis and her friends to call on the spirits of peace to be with us and with our beloved Martin.
Thank you. We're going to sing a song. We're going to sing the same song. It's part of our ceremony when we open a ceremony. we finish it off with the same song. I just want to share that for Aboriginal people, we believe that when our loved ones pass, they pass for a reason, but they pass to guide us from above. For us, country is everything, and there's little things from this country that trigger little moments where you remember Dad. There will be a smell, there'll be a bird, there'll be something. That's what Australia is, right? It's one of the most beautiful countries in the world. And we as Aboriginal people have shared that gift with you, mob. And that's why we are here today. Because you, mob, shared Martin with us.
To share that ripple that goes all the way, that nudgy waterhole, it goes up to Bubuganyum and the Bunya Mountains. That's why this song's so important. It ties us together, and it's this beautiful connection that was shared today for the love and respect of Martin and the Kelly family. Yo, Ngare Nami. And we welcome you to come to our country and get that healing too. When you go to Bunya Bunya, you'll always be protected. Yo.
So now that we're at the end of the service, I just want to take the time to say a few thank yous. Firstly, we want to thank everyone who was involved in making this happen today. The amount of support and time put in by family and friends was amazing. Thank you to Shamari and Jackson for sorting through the 3,000 photos that were sent to her to put together a slideshow, and for everyone who sent them in. We'd like to thank Simone from Joy Fiore for the beautiful floral display that you see here. And again, I just want to thank Christopher for making the vessel for Dad. What you probably can't see, well, it's beautiful on the outside. Christopher has carved in an image of a sailboat, a motorbike, an AFL goals, and a football. So something for Dad to be with Dad. That's good. I'd also like to thank Nudgee College for providing the venue and for the assistance today. In particular, Peter Fulliger, the principal, Stephen Miera, the Dean of Identity, Raul Carmody and his team for all the AV, and Stephen and Alfonso for catering. I want to thank the Gold Coast Private Hospital, and specifically the staff on Ward 3 and the ICU for everything they did for Dad. It will probably come as no surprise that Dad was a bit of a favourite amongst the team there. I want to thank Dr. Stephen Stillian, Dr. Victor Chen, and Dr. James Renton for everything they did for Dad in his final weeks. Finally, I want to say a thank you to Dr. Brendan O'Kane. Brendan has been Dad's doctor for decades, but he was also a close friend and someone Dad respected a lot. Brendan helped save Dad's life a few years ago, which enabled us to have a few more good years with him. We are forever grateful for what you did for Dad and the love and care that you showed for him. Now, the formal part of the service is over, and we hope you have learnt something new regarding Dad. I suspect that we all could have easily carried on for many more hours telling stories of his life. As we move out of here to the gardens outside and then later on to the wake, it is important that we all get the chance to tell our own Māori story, to laugh, cry and remember what he meant to us and the lessons we learnt. As has been pointed out many times today, many of us are better people because of the lessons we learnt from Dad. While Dad is physically gone, we can honour his legacy by taking all those lessons, all those words of wisdom, and incorporate them into our daily lives, and more importantly, share and teach them to others. As I sat down to write this bit, I struggled. How do you end this service? What words do you say? In the end, though, I think we all let the final song say it for us.
We're so glad to see so many of you lovely people here tonight, and we would especially like to welcome all the representatives of Illinois' law enforcement community who have chosen to join us here in the Palace Hotel ballroom at this time. We do sincerely hope you all enjoy the show, and please remember, people, that no matter who you are and what you do to live, thrive, and survive, there are still some things that make us all the same. You, me, them, everybody. Sugar to kiss. I need you, I need you, I need you. In the morning, when my soul's on fire, sometimes I feel a little sad inside. When my baby mistreats me, I never want to make it high. Sometimes I feel a little sad inside. When my baby mistreats me, I never want to make it high. I need you, I need you, I need you, I need you. You know, people, when you do find somebody, hold that woman, hold that man, love him, fleece him, squeeze her, fleece her, hold